We are close to the start of the second half. The Chicago White Sox are 46-46 and 3 games back in the AL Central. White Sox pitching, among so many other things, will be a prime focus as the Sox get things going against the Guardians on Friday night. The Juan Soto saga continues, and the White Sox are once again mentioned to be involved. If not Juan Soto, who else can help the Sox down the stretch?
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Really appreciate you letting me steal some of your time to talk White Sox. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're getting ready for the second half here. Sox have 4 with the Cleveland Guardians on the south side starting on Friday. Lots of White Sox talk to get to. It is a pleasure to be joined by Sox On Tap contributor Steve Paradzinski. Welcome, Steve, to Locked On Sox.
Hey, Nick. Appreciate you having me on again. Always great to get together with you and talk some Sox.
We got a lot to get to, buddy, in a short amount of time, but you wrote a wonderful article on Tap Sportsnet revolving around Michael Kopech and almost what the Sox need to do, how to set him up for success. I want to hear from you specifically, on that article. The starters have been mentioned for the Cleveland series. Giolito on Friday, Lynn or Cueto on Saturday, game 1, and then whoever's not pitching will go game 2, and then Cease versus Bieber, which I can't wait for that matchup on Sunday, but no mention of Cueto in the first series. Thoughts, Steve, maybe even picking through your article on, what the Sox are going to need to be doing in the second half to keep him fresh and productive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for once was able to get out in front of the news cycle a little bit, getting this article out today before the rotation was announced for this pivotal series against the Cleveland Guardians to open the second half. And, it is very interesting to see Michael Kopech absent from the probable starters for this 4-game series. The other interesting dynamic here is the off days that will follow this series. You have one on Monday before they've got a 2-game set in Colorado, and then another one next Thursday. So really one of the things that I highlighted in my piece was the fact that the All-Star break and the choppy schedule with this interleague series against the Rockies gives the Sox an opportunity to allow Michael Kopech to kind of recharge his batteries a little bit, given some of the struggles that we have seen from him over the last month since he exited that game against the Texas Rangers on Sunday, July 12th with the knee issue.
Yeah, he, as of late, we talk about running out of gas or running out of steam. And I feel like the strike zone has just been jumping around on him a bit. There's an emotional piece to it. And I think he's checked himself pretty well, and, he's kept things in perspective, even in post-game conversations, but I can sense that he has been frustrated. But, 17 games start, 83 innings pitched, 74 strikeouts in those 83 innings, and he's got a 3.36 ERA. Is there an innings limit, do you think, that the Sox are going to try to hover around here in the rest of the season?
My thought coming into the season was always that he was going to be limited to about 120 or 130 innings. I think if you go back to the 2021 season, he had, I want to say it was 65 or 66 innings pitched in there. And that was his first season pitching competitively since 2018, obviously following the Tommy John surgery, sitting out the 2020 COVID shortened season due to personal issues. So this is really the first foray for him back into a full-time starting rotation since 2018 when he was in Birmingham and then his brief call-up with the Sox. So my thought's always been that 120, 130 innings mark. So again, this is where the schedule kind of gives him an opportunity to put some limitations on the innings, allow him to save some of the bullets for a pivotal stretch run here. Obviously, this team has put themselves in a position where they are within striking distance, and you would certainly want a healthy, fresh Michael Kopech to be available down the stretch pitching pivotal innings for this team.
Yeah, it's I still have to, take a step back, and I know Sox fans, do this as well of like, wow, when this guy came into the organization in the fall of 2016 in that Moncada sale, that big deal that really sprung the Sox in a different direction. I mean, this is the first year that we're really seeing what we were hoping for back in 2016. A Michael Kopech, in a starting rotation. There have been some highs. I mean, some of that Yankees game. I mean, that was unbelievable. But it's not sustainable, right? Like he's going to have some lows too because it's still his first year in the starting rotation.
You're absolutely right. You touched on some of the high points for him, Nick. Obviously the Sunday night game against the Yankees, and then he had a superior outing at home against the Los Angeles Dodgers back in June. And that was the start that immediately preceded the game against the Texas Rangers when the knee issue flared up for the first time. So he definitely has had moments where you've seen the top of the rotation arm that we all thought that we were getting when he was acquired for Chris Sale back in December of 2016. Unfortunately, it just kind of looks like he's hit a little bit of a dead arm period. And I think most Sox fans kind of realized that that was something that was going to happen eventually at some point. There was really no way to kind of tell when that would take place. If you look at the stretch of time that I highlighted in my piece earlier today here, starting with the start against against the Houston Astros on June 19th on ESPN on Sunday night. From there up until the start against the Detroit Tigers on July the 10th, he had a precipitous decline in his velocity, saw a decline in his strikeout rate, increase significantly in his walk rate, and in a significant increase in his home run rate. So those are kind of things that point to a dead arm period for me. And you saw a decline in the overall fastball usage as well. The positive to that, however, is his last start going into the break against the Twins. The fastball velocity was up again at about 95.5 miles per hour. That was a full 3 miles an hour up from where it was against the Tigers on July the 10th. So hopefully that dead arm period has kind of dissipated a little bit, and we're going to get back to seeing the high octane four-seam fastball that we saw from him for so much of the season.
Yeah, great points. We all have the ability to pour over every single pitch, and you can see the trajectory, the spin. You can see that, we are, boy, and it could be graphed. This is, the peaks and valleys of miles per hour throughout an outing, and being in the first year in a rotation. He will go through some of those lulls, especially because he can't be a max guy where he's throwing one inning out of the bullpen like he did last year. He's got to pace himself. Worried about the command at all, Steve? I mean, it tends like he can walk guys in bunches, especially in the first inning.
Yeah, that is one thing that has been a little problematic for him on the season. He's about 4.5 walks per nine, which is close to a walk and a half increase over where he was pitching out of the bullpen primarily in 2021. And that was really one of the biggest concerns about him as he was working his way through the minor leagues in the systems with the Boston Red Sox. And then once he was acquired by the Sox, going through, particularly AA Birmingham and then AAA Charlotte, the strike zone would get away from him at times. So that is definitely something that has to be addressed here in short order. He does have a tendency to get himself into some trouble, falling behind in counts 2-0, 2-1, 3-1. But he's got such overwhelming stuff that he can pitch around that when needed. But obviously, he's going to put himself in a much better position to be successful and be dominant and work deeper into games if he can get ahead in counts consistently.
Yeah, I feel like we're just kind of splitting hairs here. Good problems to have as we enter the second half, and it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to what Kopech has to offer for the White Sox in these months to come. We're going to take another look at the first half, and we're going to tell you what needs to happen for the Sox to be back in the World Series conversation. More on that in a moment. Welcome to the world of sports cards reimagined. The Sports Card Investor app is the hobby's most powerful resource. Quickly check the value of your favorite cards, find great deals, and profit from the hobby you love. Available completely free in the Google Play and Apple app stores, the Sports Card Investor app is a must-have for baseball fans. Easily browse over 630,000 cards from every sport with hundreds more added each week. Check the latest values of your favorite cards with 7-day or 30-day charts. Find the best prices and buy directly through the app with our eBay deals feature. Plus, it's completely free. Whether you're a casual card collector or looking for exciting alternative investment opportunities, the free Sports Card Investor app has something for you. With the free Sports Card Investor app, you can pull out those old cards from your favorite childhood players and see how much they are worth today. Download the Sports Card Investor app today, available for free in the Google Play and Apple app stores, or go to sportscardinvestor.com/locked on. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So, there's no one answer. We're not going to solve this in an 8-minute segment, but I can't help during this All-Star break, Steve, just continually to think about what went wrong in the first half? What went right? As you have thought about and sat with this maybe over the last few days, what are the things that come to your mind of, boy, those were the top three, or those were the major things that went really wrong that we need to clean up here on this White Sox team?
Well, first and foremost has been the power outage that has plagued this team throughout the entirety of the season. Coming into play, starting tomorrow with the second half, this team ranks 24th in all of baseball in home runs hit with 84. And one of the pieces that I wrote for On Tap Sports and a couple of weeks back highlighted the power outage and just the significant decline that this team has had in home runs and the need for this team to start hitting the ball out of the ballpark, particularly at home, if they were to make a significant push in the second half. We saw in the last 10 games leading into the All-Star break, this team went 7-3. It is not a coincidence that in those 10 games, they hit 14 home runs by 9 different guys. So it was spread pretty much up and down the lineup. The old saying is, ball go far, team go far. And you and I are both old enough to remember a time when it was said that the White Sox as a team used to hit too many home runs. Boy, I would kill to go back to those days.
How about it? Oh my goodness. It feels like it's been coming on late, and a guy like Moncada has caught fire a bit. I don't know. You and I have had a lot of conversations over the last few years, whether it's on Good Guys Talk Back or when you and I just talk. We've run into each other just before a game or something. The pressure that's put on Yoan Moncada by all of us fans to perform, and some of the expectations are unrealistic. But just simply to have some power to hit extra bases with regularity. It's not too much to ask. He seems to be doing it now. This is huge for the Sox if he could sustain this. What are your thoughts on Moncada in the second half?
Yoan Moncada is definitely one of the X factors for this team. In fact, heading into the season, I thought him and Michael Kopech were really the two X factors overall for this group. We saw obviously Moncada missed the first, I want to say 5 or 6 weeks of the season with the oblique injury. And then when he came back, really the power simply wasn't there. And really the plate discipline was something that has not been there that we typically have been accustomed to with him. So two guys that I'm really watching particularly close in the second half, and I'm assuming that Yasmani Grandal will be activated come Friday. Yasmani Grandal and Yoan Moncada are two guys that can help provide the much needed left-handed balance and plate discipline that this team has lacked for the entirety of the season almost. If both of those guys can come back and provide a level of power in the middle part of this lineup, it's just going to help provide significant length to this team and to an offensive unit that really is very top heavy. And if they can get power production from both of those guys, similar to what we have seen from them in the past, it's going to just make this offense a lot more dangerous. And again, put them in a much better position to surpass the Cleveland Guardians and the Minnesota Twins and win the AL Central again.
Yeah, that's what we saw from Yasmani Grandal last season in the second half was outstanding. If we can get just something in that neighborhood, that would be so helpful to take things in the right direction. In terms of the first half, what were some things that popped off in the pages of that went right? Let's continue in that direction. Those were good things, and hopefully they either stay the same or they get better.
Two guys that really stood out to me on the pitching side of the equation here, kind of flip the script a little bit. Dylan Cease, obviously, everyone knows should have been an all-star and is in the discussion for American League Cy Young through the first half of the season. And really an unsung hero for this group. Another guy I wrote about recently, Ronaldo Lopez. His transition into the bullpen full-time here has been really a revelation for this team. And he's a guy that has been thrust into a couple of different roles, and he's just gone out there and gotten the job done almost every single time that he has been given the ball. And he's putting himself in a position to be a more high leverage reliever and putting himself in a position to potentially down the road, I think, be a guy that can be a setup man or even a closer. And I made a comparison in a piece I wrote about him recently. His statistically is very similar, his career arc, to that of Wade Davis, formerly of the Tampa Bay Rays and the Kansas City Royals. And we saw a lot of him in that Kansas City Royals bullpen there. The numbers between the two of the similarities are really striking. And I think Lopez is the type of guy that really can continue to refine this role in the bullpen and be a deadly weapon for this team.
I'm glad you mentioned Ronaldo Lopez. He is the forgotten man, another guy that was acquired early during the rebuild, and we've been kind of waiting to see the real Ronaldo Lopez. There have been glimpses, and he has been very impressive in situations where he has had to get out of jams, multiple jams, and he has stepped up. Expectations coming into this season, of course, everybody knows it. World Series or bust. That is why it's been so deflating for the Sox to be where they are and where they were just even a couple weeks ago. It went from World Series or bust to, I think we could win the AL Central to now I just hope we make it to the postseason. The way the Sox ended the first half, especially that Minnesota series, do you think we'll get back sooner rather than later into talking about the White Sox as World Series contenders?
Well, I think a lot of it, again, is going to be predicated on this team's ability to hit the baseball out of the ballpark. Really, that is what needs to happen in order for them to sustain success. It's been pretty well documented at this point that baseball in the year 2022 is not won by stringing together 3 and 4 singles in an inning. The funny thing is the White Sox actually have the 4th highest team batting average in all of baseball. But if you look at them from an offensive production standpoint, they are near the bottom third of the league in most categories simply because they don't hit enough home runs. They don't walk. That's really how you win baseball games today in the modern game. So if they can continue to do what we saw those last 10 days leading into the break, getting on base with a little more regularity and hitting the ball out of the ballpark and hitting 2 and 3 run homers, I think this team's fortune definitely will turn around.
Yeah. The Sox, they've got a lot of needs to be addressed at the deadline. We're going to tell you what the Sox should focus on to help set them up for success down the stretch. More on that in a moment. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built bar flavor you love and a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But please stop drooling and listen. They are actually good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, all delicious. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are only here for a limited time. Go to built.com now to make sure you don't miss out. All Built bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They're the perfect treat, perfect when you've got a craving, when you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you need a quick, healthy snack. They are an excellent source of protein. Delicious coconut, rich, sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15. Okay, I talked about on the episode yesterday some of the Juan Soto stuff. It continues to pop up. Steve, again, you and I are no stranger to the crazy White Sox trade hypotheticals that happen during the off season at trade deadlines. We've heard them all. And as lifelong Sox fans, I just kind of have to laugh at this Juan Soto thing, but it continues to gain steam. White Sox have been mentioned as one of the teams that, of course, have some sort of seat at the table. Just your thoughts, Steve, on this Juan Soto nonsense, and if the Sox are actually involved in any of this.
Nonsense is really the appropriate word to use here. I've really not been even entertaining much of the discussion regarding Juan Soto for two simple reasons. One, the Sox don't have the ability to meet the acquisition cost that the Washington Nationals are going to throw out there in order to send the all-world outfielder to the corner of 35th and Shields. And on top of that, the Sox won't meet the retention cost to keep him at 35th and Shields long term. So those two variables right there just simply make all of this discussion pointless, for lack of a better term. If you really want to make yourself nauseous thinking about Juan Soto, think about the fact that in 2016, when the team signed Fernando Tatis out of the Dominican Republic, they actually thought that they had a deal in place to sign Juan Soto for $1.4 million. And then the Nationals had a private hitting session with him, and they signed him for $1.5 million.
That's classic. You can't make that stuff up. That is
only the White Sox.
That is true White Sox stuff. Yeah, the retention thing, you hit on it. Well said. The Sox have a lot of different needs, and the trade deadline is coming up fast, and I'm sure the conversations have been going on with the front office. Maybe have escalated a little bit with the way the Sox finished the first half. What do you see the Sox doing to get better, to set this team up for success for the long haul?
Well, I think there's really three pivotal things that this team needs to address that, unfortunately, one of them they didn't really address in the offseason, and that is their ability to handle right-handed pitching. They're about 23rd or 24th in the league in terms of overall offensive production against right-handed pitching. If you look at weighted runs created plus as a metric there. So if you could find someone ideally that hits from the left side of the plate that maybe could split time between, say, second base and right field in a perfect world, that would be great. I can't think of who that player is off the top of my head, to tell you the truth. The other two things on the pitching side of it here, we started our discussion today talking about Michael Kopech and the innings limit that he is going to be on. And we didn't really get a chance to touch on some of the struggles that Lance Lynn has had since coming off of the IL. So I personally believe that this team is going to need a starting pitcher. And one guy that I think would make a ton of sense for this team, someone that White Sox fans are all too familiar with, Jose Quintana of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So he would definitely fill a need for this team in the starting rotation. Can obviously help them to limit the innings with Michael Kopech, allowing to kind of skip, maybe use a 6-man rotation, do some piggybacking off of each other. And one other area that I think has to be addressed is having a left-handed arm in the bullpen, because right now the only lefty reliever on this roster is Tanner Banks. And a team that believes that they are a viable World Series contender cannot go into the stretch run and into October in that position. We don't know when Aaron Bummer is going to be back. So maybe a guy like Andrew Chafin with the Detroit Tigers, someone that has really been death on left-handed hitters this season, I think he would be an ideal fit. So I think those are a couple of the guys that might make the most sense. I don't think the acquisition cost would be prohibitive for this team to be able to make those kinds of moves.
Great ideas, Steve. I think those are perfect fillers. And you brought up a really great topic that needs to almost a separate episode on the Lance Lynn thing and what is going on with him. I hope he gets right. I hope he is healthy, and I hope he figures it out, because he can be a very valuable piece. If you look at what happened last year, we need him. Steve, I hope we get to talk again throughout this season. It is always a pleasure when we connect. Please let everybody know where they can find the great stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, so you can find my work at On Tap Sportsnet, working specifically with the Sox On Tap group. You can find me on Twitter at NWI_Steve. And you can hear me almost on a nightly basis doing the Sox On Tap postgame recap shows, available on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Podcast versions are available on all the major podcast platforms.
Awesome. Steve Paradzinski, thank you so much, buddy, for joining Locked On White Sox.
Nick, thanks again. Pleasure as always.
Go Sox, buddy.
Go Sox.
Thank you, folks, so much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.